disappointed if the round of applause at the end isn't as good as at the start. So yes, hi, I'm Tom, and I'm going to be talking about why I believe that games are the first killer app for voice. Let me see if the clicker works. Yeah, so the title for this talk actually comes from this guy. He was reported, in case you don't know, that's Jeff Bezos. He was reported sometime mid last year to have decided that games were going to be the first killer app for Alexa, and that was what was going to drive the adoption of the platform. And kind of sent out an edict to the team within Amazon saying that they should do that, that they should do things to encourage developers to build for the platform or to build games for the platform. Although I'm hoping that this talk will be applicable to all voice assistants, I'm mainly going to be talking about Amazon because I've found we have products on Google, but they don't seem to get the same kind of traction or traffic. I think that one of the other big things we see is that Amazon, there's a kind of a business rationale for building on there. They have the developer rewards program, which means that for an indie developer, you can make money out of building products, which doesn't exist on Google yet. So that's something that I hope will come down the line. Go clicker. So bit about me. I'm a conversation designer, so my background is in design. I came to this via the world of chatbots. I discovered chatbots while I was at Facebook, and I was an early tester of Facebook M, which was their kind of now defunct like virtual assistant that's via a text message. When I saw it, I was like, this is going to be a really big thing. But I kind of, I was like, every brand is going to want these. They had this idea that it could kind of provide everything. And I thought, no, that's not how it's going to pan out. Like every brand is going to want their own individual one of these. So I left to set up a business doing that. I did that for a best part of a year. And then I started to realize that there wasn't something wasn't going quite right. Brands were buying the chatbots and, they were kind of interested in it as a platform, but we weren't seeing the user traction that I was expecting. We were kind of, you could get bots with hundreds of thousands of users, but the retention was really poor. And as soon as you kind of stopped marketing them, they would die off. And it felt like there was an issue with it. So I kind of started thinking, like, why is it that chatbots aren't working? And kind of came to the conclusion that the friction was too high. So the thing that was really great about conversational interfaces is that there's no mental model to learn. So you don't have to, teach the user how to kind of use the product. But that was being balanced out by the fact that it takes 30 taps to complete an interaction compared to 2. So that kind of made me think, that maybe conversation wasn't going to be such a big thing. But around that time, Alexa came out on the platform. And so I started playing around with the platform. So prior to this, I had been working mainly with like brands building utility type stuff. And I wanted to learn a bit about Alexa because I was thinking, this seems like it solves a lot of the friction problems, but retains the kind of the conversational mental model. Sorry, I'm being told to hold my microphone up. Retains a lot of the conversational mental model benefits that I kind of initially saw. And so I started messing around, and I kind of had a weekend hack project where I built a very small game of Would You Rather. Do people know kind of what Would You Rather is as a concept? Where it's like, would you rather be too tall or too short or whatever? I kind of built this tiny little like weekend hack project and then forgot all about it and kind of went back to consulting on the kind of stuff. And then about 2 or 3 months later, I get a phone call out of the blue from Amazon saying, like, do you realize that this is the 3rd most popular thing on our platform worldwide? Which, I was like, no. And then they were like, and we're going to pay you to keep maintaining it. And I was like, what? So, after I kind of stopped jumping up and down for joy, I realized that there was a huge demand for games on the platform, and I felt like there were quite a lot of opportunities that hadn't been built. Until that point, all the kind of Alexa skills that had been built had really been built by hobby developers that were, they were kind of just trying to find out the platform like I was, and they hadn't kind of thought too much about how you design products to make them grow, how you design them so that they work at scale. And I kind of knew that we'd be able to, or that I could do that. So I kind of did a accidental pivot into making voice games, which seemed to have paid off. So we kind of grew from a team of like 1 to 6, and ended up with, oh, has my clicker stopped working? Excuse me. Oh, I don't know what's going on there. Ended up, so this is where it should have been. So we ended up with 3 games on the platform, called Would You Rather, True or False, and the fake news game. They're all like, yeah, you can go and try these later. Has anyone actually played any of them? Okay. Oh, there's a few hands. All right, that's good. Well, that's nice. So yeah. Anyway, you can go and play these later. Oh, by the way, I just played the FT's game, the Make Connections during the break, and it's like the Flappy Bird voice. Like, I really think that could be a great game. It's impossible to get more than 1 point. It's like, wow. So yeah. So anyway, so we built these 3 games, and they were rather successful. So we kind of, you can see as we like introduced stuff, our traffic started growing until kind of the point where we're doing 250,000 users a month. And I mean, we had a bit of a spike in December, but you can see that the kind of traffic hasn't tailed off too much in January. And I guess the point that I'm trying to make about this is that the average retention on a voice app is about 7%. And we see 3 out of 4 people playing at least 4 times, or 5 times, I can't even read my own slide, and a fifth of them are playing more than 25 times. We see people coming back again and again. We have users that have played hundreds of times. So, we kind of see, and like, there's nothing like notifications, or there's no way of kind of creating habit-forming experiences. It's just content that people really love to consume. So in total, we reckon that people have spent 94,000 hours or more than 10 years playing our games, which I think is an astonishing statistic considering we haven't even been doing it a year. But it's not just us. So, I mean, we can see that the top 100 rated skills, that 28% of them are smart home, and then games are kind of the next one. Now, I didn't title this why smart home is the first killer app for voice, for a simple reason that I think that the platforms are going to take that over themselves. I think that the time of smart home manufacturers building separate kind of skills and actions is going to come to an end pretty soon, and that kind of behavior will be handled natively. The platforms will provide APIs to the manufacturers that will do that for them. So what is it about voice games that people love? Well, the real answer is, what is it about other voice things that they don't love? Designing for voice is really hard. I mean, like a lot of people have said this. We've had a lot of talk about design today, actually, which is really gratifying as someone from a kind of a design background where we're kind of used to this being a kind of a very like technical field, to hear so many people talking about the kind of the benefits and challenges of design. But if you're building a utility skill, that's really difficult to get right. And I'm just seeing if I've got what my next slide is. Yeah. So the trouble is, like, imagine that we're at a kind of we're at the Smart Voice Summit event, cocktail party later this evening, and we're kind of chatting, and I'm saying to you, oh, we're looking for people in London. Why don't you come and work with us? And you're saying, oh, but what's the weather like there? you've got a kind of a reasonable expectation that I should be able to handle that and give you a kind of coherent answer. And the problem is that people expect the same thing from your utility skills as well. And that's really difficult to fulfill because you have so many edge cases that users reasonably expect you to be able to handle. And it just makes the kind of the scope of any voice project enormous if you're going to kind of do it with any kind of level of success. And the great thing about games is they let you constrain your user's mental model in a natural way. So, you know, instead of kind of, imagine again that we're a few glasses of wine in and the conversation's dried up and I'm like, okay, well, this is awkward. How about we play a game to break the silence? You know, so say like, I'm thinking of a historical figure and, you know, why don't you try and guess who it is? If you then ask me what's the weather is like in London, you know, it's quite clear to both of us that you want the game to end. You don't expect within the kind of the realm of the game for me to be able to handle that and do anything with it. So this kind of like, this fits much better with the mental model of skills or actions as they exist today and the kind of what we are able to actually do. What else is there? Oh, that's the wrong direction. So games fit with the way that users think about these devices. So my background, I used to be a journalist. Before I kind of got into tech, I used to be a journalist, and I used to kind of spend a lot of my time worrying about kind of creating and commissioning compelling content. But one of the things that we talked a lot about was the kind of difference between a lean forward and a lean back experience. And, you know, voice, in my opinion, and especially smart speaker devices, are the kind of the ultimate lean back experiences. They're so lean back, you don't even need to tap anything. So I think that users are not looking to kind of solve complex tasks with their voice assistant. You know, if they wanted to do that, if they wanted to do the monthly forecast, they would just use their computer or use their phone. They're looking for something that's quick and easy that you can kind of, to be mildly entertained for 5 minutes. I mean, you know, they're not looking for, yeah, if I want to play a super engaging, immersive game, I'm going to pick up my Nintendo Switch. I'm not going to go to Alexa. You know, that's kind of natural. It's the way that I think about the device. Games also fit better with what the platforms allow for now. So, you know, useful things that, you know, if you wanted to build a kind of a good utility skill, there's things that you really would like to have, like, you know, the audio of what the user is saying. If you're going to do anything that involves some kind of element of human in the loop, you really want to be able to get that audio so that you can hear the kind of additional context that you're going to get from that. Can't get that at the moment. Notifications, again, something that would be super important for all sorts of kind of apps. And actually, the platforms kind of reaching out into other spaces. So, you know, being able to connect with other services online and whatever. That connect to kind of like social experiences, even connect to the platform's own social experiences, aren't available to third-party developers, which means that, you know, all the kind of, it severely limits the number of useful utility type skills that you can build today. And that doesn't really apply to games because games are very self-contained. You can just build them on the platform. They're kind of limited to their own set of interactions. And you can kind of design a game that doesn't need any of those things, and it still feels like a good experience. Some tips on how to create games that work. Put the users first. I mean, I think every single person that stood up today has said this. So when I come up with a game concept, I actually read the script. Like, I sit with users and I play the game. I pretend to be the voice assistant and I get them to play the game with me like I'm an assistant, so that I can kind of try and figure out all the different ways that they might interact with it. And, you know, that I always end up changing the games. Like, within kind of the space of about 3 conversations, I'm like, oh, well, that initial concept wasn't great. Someone earlier said that if you're doing design right, if you're doing design right, then you're going to be throwing away your initial ideas because it's showing you that you're doing that. And I find that the whole time. But even after you've kind of settled on that concept, you know, building up that kind of repertoire of all the different things the user's going to say to you, all those kind of error states that you need to handle, because, you know, 95% of good voice design is being able to handle errors well and get the user back on track. So yeah, putting the users first, I think everyone has said that. Keep it casual. So, you know, as I said, people are not looking to kind of for super immersive experiences. They're not looking to, I mean, you know, you see this with the kind of the games that are on the platform. There's some fantastic games on the platform. You know, like the Magic Door, or even the BBC's Inspection Chamber that are kind of, you know, they're incredibly immersive. They use real audio. There's all sorts of like really great things about them, but that's not what the user is looking to do in that moment. They're looking for something that to facilitate a conversation, to fill 5 minutes. They're looking for something to just kind of like add just a little bit of extra value, not to kind of change their whole life. And you know, I think that that's something that you can apply to any skill. Is that kind of idea of like, don't try and make something that's like a whole experience that should be taking away the user's attention. It should be there to kind of facilitate whatever else it is that they're trying to achieve. Content is king. So I would say this because I come from a media background. But, you know, on every voice project, a writer should be your first hire. You know, you can't. The content is the reason that people come and use your app. Or come and use it. You know, everything else is just the way that we deliver the content. You know, you need a good design. You need a good tech stack. You need all of that. But if you haven't got compelling content that people are going to actively seek out and talk about, you're not going to get repeat users. I mean, you look at the kind of the most successful games out there, things like Question of the Day, or, you know, even like True or False. Like, the reason that people love it is because the questions are good, and we spend an awful lot of time making sure the questions are good. A good design will save you time and money. So, I mean, I'm sure there seem to be quite a few designers in the room, so I'm preaching to the choir with that. But in case you're from a brand, making sure that you spend the time up front to do the design will limit the scope of the project. You know, we are still in a field where a lot of the technology is very new, and we're trying to kind of make things that are a bit difficult work for the very first time. And a good design will help you to get that right. It'll kind of limit those interactions to the bare minimum. But the thing is, you can't just kind of do that alone. So any good conversation designer needs to be capable of working hand in hand with the developers building the project. You need to kind of spend your whole time. I mean, I sit next to the developers that code our games. You know, we spend our whole time discussing, could we do this interaction in a different way? How hard or easy is this? You know, it often turns out that just by changing the interaction ever so slightly, you can make it significantly easier. I mean, it's my personal opinion that a good conversation designer probably needs to know how to code, you know, which is quite a controversial topic, whether designers should code. But I think at the moment, the tool set is not developed enough that you can accurately design conversational products without being able to kind of get into the code, be able to make copy changes in the code, to be able to, you know, have kind of full conversations with developers and like, you know, actually understand what they're talking about when they're kind of talking about entity resolution and stuff. And also, you're going to spend an awful lot of time reading API documentation. I find kind of as the designer on these games, I spend most of the time worrying about, you know, the certification requirements. Are we going to get through certification on the various platforms? And, you know, you need to kind of be able to understand those, and those can be quite technical in their language. And what else have I got to say? I don't know. What else did I have to say? Oh, any questions? So, yeah. I also have a risky live demo, if people are willing to bear with it for 2 seconds. So this is, Amazon have just allowed, they've just updated their Alexa app on the Android so that you can use Alexa on the phone. Is there anyone from Amazon still in the room? All right, okay, so I can say this then. It's not the greatest. I'm going to try, but if it breaks, it's not my fault, I promise. Okay. Alexa, open True or False Voice Edition.
Welcome to True or False Smart Voice Summit Edition. I'll tell you facts about the voice ecosystem and you can say if you think they are true or false. How many people want to play?
1.
Great, 1 it is. On your marks.
Okay. You gotta help me.
Here we go. True or false, more Echo Dots were sold than Apple Watches last year.
More Echo Dots or Apple Watches? True.
Say that again.
True.
Well done. It's estimated that Amazon sold 24 million units, beating both the Apple Watch and Nintendo Switch. Here's another.
Okay.
True or false, a third of all searches will be made with voice by 2020.
Third of all searches made by voice by 2020. False. True or false?
Try saying true or false.
False.
Boom. You're right. ComScore estimates that by 2020 more than half of all searches will be spoken rather than typed. Here's another. True or false, the number of Alexa skills has doubled in the past year.
Number of Alexa skills doubled in the last year. This was announced earlier today, so if you were listening, what he's saying, hands up for true. Hands up for false. Right. False.
Well done. There were only 7
Well done.
at this point last year.
Cool. All right. That's enough of the demo.
Thank you very much, Tom. That was you totally rocked the last keynote. Thank you very much.